So I was at Cannes Film Festival in France, and I saw even more cool movies, so let's talk about them. One of the films I saw was Shoplifters, from the director of Like Father, Like Son. From what I've seen from this director, he seems to have a fairly consistent tone and style, meaning if you enjoyed Like Father, Like Son, then you'll definitely enjoy this one. I should probably also mention that his film The Third Murder felt very different, and I enjoyed that one quite a lot. Anyway, this is a movie that is fairly lighthearted and has a lot of warmth when it comes to the characters. Basically, a family that gets by on shoplifting take in a child that they find, and that's about as much of the plot that I want to give away. Much of the film is very atmospheric in its setting. The minuscule Japanese home that this family lives in feels very honest and real, and to go along with that, it's also very well shot. The child performances were well done from what I can tell as someone who's not fluent in Japanese. Everyone else did a great job performing their characters as well, and these characters are very lovable and endearing. There are morally questionable behaviors from the characters in this film, and I'm glad that the film doesn't really force you how to think about them. It doesn't really present things in a black and white kind of way. It's smart in the way that it's presented, and I enjoyed this film quite a lot. This isn't really a movie that aims to challenge its audience members, but it doesn't pander or dumb things down. It's a nice, enjoyable, heartfelt movie made by a director that knows what he's doing, and I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. I also saw the film At War by Stéphane Brisé. This is the same director as The Measure of a Man from my 2015 list. This film also has the same main actor, and the concept of this film is also fairly similar, and yet despite loving The Measure of a Man, this film did not really do it for me. If you thought The Measure of a Man had pacing issues, well, you probably don't really want to see this one then. It is so incredibly repetitive, and the film seems to just drag on, showing us the same scenes over and over, essentially. It's really difficult to feel a sense of progression as the film goes on, and I get that much of it is improvised, but it just felt very stagnant compared to the previous film. The main actor's performance was great as usual, and that's probably the best aspect of the film. The way that characters talk and interact with each other seems very realistic. There are plenty of films that successfully ride off of actors' performances, but unfortunately there were aspects of this film that were actively dragging it down. The Measure of a Man was a film with no soundtrack that played a track by Bonobo at the end credits, but this film actually decided to include a soundtrack, and it was fucking embarrassing. There are 2 tracks that are played over the course of this film. One of them is played 5 times, and the other is played 4 times. I am not even fucking kidding, they just keep playing the same 2 songs over and over. And both of these songs are terrible. One of them tries to be really fucking cool and edgy with electric guitar. The other one tries to be sad and purposeful and poignant with reverbed electric guitar. And they both sound identical to what I could pay some random guy on the internet $15 for. Incredibly fucking amateur and unprofessional. These songs were both garbage, and they were played throughout the entire movie. When criticizing the pacing of this movie, it's like, okay, this is just a slow movie that doesn't really have much going on. I would prefer if there were more things going on, but whatever. But the soundtrack is actively bad. It is so bad that I blame the director for allowing these songs into his film, and including them in completely unironic ways that are not supposed to be embarrassing. It really dragged the film down, and it's kind of disappointing. No music would have been just fine. And on top of all that, the way this movie ended was also poorly executed. Let's just say there were some really fake computer-generated fire effects that reminded me of Maps to the Stars. And let's also say that we get a really shitty, cliched montage of characters looking sad, accompanied by more shitty music. Much of this film feels legitimately bad, which makes me feel like The Measure of a Man was kind of a fluke in some ways. Had the director decided to include a soundtrack in that film, then I have no idea what it might have been like. Like I said, the performances in this movie were great, but unfortunately they basically just get canceled out by the other elements weighing it down, and what we're left with is something very bland and unspecial. Check this one out if you want, but I don't really see why you would, and I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10.